Hello, everyone. I am Eric Shiraev. I am professor who will teach international relations, international politics. Today, we will turn to constructivism in international politics. And this is another approach which examines how states interact, how decisions are made, how international institutions achieve their goals. We'll discuss contemporary events and events of distant past events in history. In previous lectures, we have studied the foundations of realpolitik or realism, power, balance of power, international environment, security regimes, the use of power, diplomacy to keep system in balance. We studied international liberalism, the ideas of commonwealth, collective decisions, common good, international institutions, soft power, democracy, and peace. Today we turn to constructivism. It's an alternative approach because the previous two have been classical. So there's been with us, those who study international relations, been with us for decades. Constructivism is an example of alternative theories, but it's a strange name because in our life we call alternative something which really new, something really at odds with reality of today. But constructivism is quite a mature an approach, and like alternative rock. It's now it's mainstream, maybe even old-fashioned, but still call it alternative. It has been alternative for some time, but now it's almost mainstream. You will enjoy learning about this approach. And of course, I will talk about the basics today, key points. Of course, the details are in the text and in other sources recommended to you by your professors or by me. So basic key points, ABCs, and then of course, discussions and applications. I will start discussion of constructivism with a brief introduction, opening case, then explain the key points of constructivism, 1, 2, 3, and what they mean, and we'll give you brief examples, and then a couple of case studies. Just you will apply your knowledge and understand the developments better. Constructivism is a school of thought which is based on people's, experts and people in power, people who make decisions, examination of reality. Well, case in point, let's examine this case. You remember, or at least you read, you can check this definitely on the web, individuals who appear in this picture. At least remember stories about them. One is to your left, it's a former leader of Iraq, Saddam Hussein, and to your right you see members of the Taliban ruling government in Afghanistan, and we talk about 20 years ago. Well, realpolitik is a point of view which attempts to explain international developments. The question: we had quite a dramatic developments in Afghanistan about 20 years ago, when the United States essentially declared war against the government, Taliban, for their alleged real sponsorship or knowledge or help to international terrorists and Al-Qaeda. United States position was that's because Taliban was complacent, if not helpful, to Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan. We need to make sure that the camps from which terrorist activities against the United States, the camps no longer there. And decision was made, offer was made. We, United States, receive we have a chance to arrest, detain those responsible for 9/11, associates, and so we will leave you alone. Not exactly what was said, but the context was this. Let's do this. Just we need to arrest those who attacked us. We know that they are on your territory. They have camps, they're training camps. You either arrest them or we arrest them, and we come and go, come and go. The answer of the Taliban was categorical no. Case a few years later, 2003, before this, the reports began to appear that Saddam Hussein had nuclear weapons. You read, and so I briefly discussed this in previous lectures, that Iraq didn't have nuclear weapons. But the problem was that the assumption was, we will discuss why the assumption occurred, who was responsible for this disinformation and wrong intelligence. Was it a lie? Was it a mistake? Was it just again, complacency of intelligence sources, government sources? Was it a willing decision, or was it just happen? The idea was that Saddam Hussein would surrender nuclear weapons, open sites for inspection if Iraq didn't have those weapons, and then conflict somehow would be resolved. I'm simplifying this, of course, but the answer from Saddam Hussein was not. Realpolitik. So you're supposed to care about your country. You're supposed to bargain. You face a potential destruction of your society or country. A foreign power imposes a threat. So bargain, find balance, make accommodations, preserve the sovereignty of your country, preserve people. And so yes, there's certain things done that's against our will, but how many things we do in our life that we don't like it, but we need to do this because of our family, because of our well-being, because of our future. Somehow realpolitik couldn't explain this. Why is this logical? Okay, it's a threat, but you address the threat. If you can't fight, you bargain. Liberalism, well, appeal to the international community, we'll call it international conference, open in Iraq, case of Iraq, open the doors, invite everybody, others, okay, maybe Americans not invited, but invite the international community, come and check our sites, check what's going on. In case of Taliban, just okay, just we're in peace, we'll live in peace. Let's not make our bargain with US, let's make an international agreement, or create this agreement in the region, something like this. As we talk about collective security, and so we will offer guarantees just for non-interference in exchange of American non-interference. So we'll preserve peace. Somehow it didn't work. As I put it here, Taliban leaders in Iraqi chose neither realpolitik nor cooperation with the international community. Why did they prefer resistance? What motivated the decisions? We can't just give one answer and, oh, we know, we figure out because we were nearby and they told each other that's why we make our decisions to resist, to fight, to be defiant. We don't have this, but numerous facts available to researchers and intelligence information and memoirs, and people who retire write those memoirs, and certain things were leaked, certain things were published, certain things were declassified. But it's also obvious, just using those information, those documents, and also using a slightly different logic than the logic of realpolitik and liberalism. Think about this. A foreign power tells you that arrest certain groups in the country, foreigners. The Taliban was told, they were told to arrest Al-Qaeda, or at least detain them, in exchange for non-intervention. That's an insult. This is something which we definitely is hurting, morally, politically, spiritually. So that they threaten you. They threaten your country. They come just from a standpoint of Taliban. We don't discuss moral justifications and cultural nuances. Of course, certainly they are there. Those cultural details. It's definitely insulting. It's definitely not appropriate. It's definitely does something to your pride, your sense of who you are. Don't forget about religion. So non-Muslims, non-believers, they telling you you're a devout Muslim, they tell you what to do, tell you how to, well, treat your guests in your country. We know that there was no love lost between well, the fighters, Al-Qaeda, mostly Sunnis, mostly Arabs, and so we have Taliban, mostly Pashtun, and yes, certainly most of them are Sunnis, but well, ethnic divisions were there. Plus, this is your country. This is Afghanistan. It's not Afghanistan is not Arab countries. You know. So pride, identity, religion, factors are important in politics. Case of Saddam Hussein, 3 years later, 2003, 2 years later. According to sources, he really believed that he played a very important role model to many in the Arab world. He really believed that he was a martyr. He really believed that he was a fighter for the rights of the poor, the afflicted, the neglected. He was the voice of the people, he thought. And therefore, he played this role to the end. People who are motivated by this ideology, by this belief, they are tough. They're tougher. They don't bargain. They don't just exchange their ideas for gold, silver, or safety, security. They go to the end. They believe in something and becomes part of who they are. Also, think about this. Saddam Hussein, not only was he preoccupied with the struggle against the United States and the West, not only was he preoccupied with his essentially fight against the rich oil regimes in the Gulf region. And so, although they consider themselves brothers in arms, but well, Hussein was very unhappy with the lack of help from the Arab world. He thought he received very few he received very little of that help. Plus, a struggle between Iraq and Iran. In the mind of Saddam Hussein was a struggle between the Arab civilization and Persian civilization. It sounds a little bit weird to those of you who didn't study this or don't know much about this, but he was really preoccupied with this struggle. So us and them. So there was Western, there was Arab world, but also was a Persian world. He was really hoped not to appear weak vis-a-vis Iran. He wanted to maintain the image that Iraq had nuclear weapons, deterrence against Iran. So many factors just make his decision solid. Just not surrender, not give up, and fight till the end. Yes, until the end, he believed that till the beginning of the invasion, the Americans were bluffing. That's a different factor. It's about other factors, about psychology. But here we go. Constructivism, if you remember, we talk about constructivism, embraces the factors which go beyond consideration of realpolitik and considerations of liberalism. Constructivism explains state actions and policies considering how societies interpret or construct information. So it's not just what happens, it's important, but how we understand what happens, in our life. Give personal examples. If your friend makes a joke about you, you laugh. If a stranger makes a joke about you, or a person you don't know much, we can be offended often. One thing, something said by your loved one, your mother said something critical about you. And most of us say, oh yeah, thanks mom, thanks. We think about just not your mother, somebody else tells you the critical arguments about you. Yes, we can be helpful. We can be can be grateful for those comments, but often not. So it depends who says, under what circumstances, the meaning of the message. Politics is in many ways it is a human enterprise.